Welcome to the Canadian Food Podcast, where we explore the foods that made us and all the controversies that come with them. We also talk about matcha a lot, but that's never really on purpose. My name is Victoria Grondin, and I am a food writer, chef, and someone who likes to bake cakes to pretend she's in control.
And I'm Palma. I love to cook, but mainly eat. I love bonding with people through food, which means I'll eat just about anything in the name of trying it out. Sometimes I also overcome my perfectionism and make content on TikTok, but not that often because I'm a Virgo and life is hard. Today, we'll be covering Montreal style bagels and trying out three iconic flavors.
Absolutely. So, we'll be briefly describing where Montreal bagels come from and why they're marginally different from the New York style. We'll also deep dive into the Heisenberg principle derived from quantum physics, why timing is crucial to proper bagel consumption, and then let you know how to make them at home. At the end, we'll wrap up by talking about why we might not need to talk about wood fire ovens. And that's pretty much it for today. So, are you ready for this episode?
I am ready. Let's get this bread.
I'm so excited for this, but also overwhelmed mentally. Okay, let's do it. So, let's start off simple with the definition of what a bagel is.
For sure. Well, according to the Merriam-Webster, a bagel is a firm, donut-shaped roll traditionally made by boiling and then baking.
Now, there are a lot of different bagel styles in the world. The most well known is the New York style.
Now, there are some distinctions from the New York style. In comparison to the New York style, the Montreal style bagel is actually thinner, crisper, and sweeter, with an insane texture. It has a crunchy, bubbly exterior and ends up tasting salty, sweet, and tangy all at once.
Yes, and the Montreal style bagel uses some techniques that really distinguish it from the rest. You can definitely get lost in the details for weeks. I have been down that rabbit hole. But ultimately, the best way to go about it is to break it down in three essential components. First, Montreal bagels are rolled by hand. Then, they are boiled in honey sweetened water or barley malt syrup. Water, and ultimately, the third step or critical component is they are baked in a wood fire oven. Once you know those key traits, it's nearly impossible to compare a Montreal style bagel to a New York one. It would be, in my opinion, like comparing a bagel to a horse. Now, that's just what I think. I think they're so different that when people say like, "Oh, are they like New York?" No, they're not like the New
No,
York.
they're
And New
very
York would
different.
agree. Yeah, they don't want to be involved with us. We don't really want to be involved with them. That's just how it is.
Does New York even know we exist? Probably. Who knows? Probably not.
I think they do
They
and they
do. They
hate
do.
it.
I know. Yeah, they do.
And I like that. So now those magnificent, really high gluten beasts didn't really come out of nowhere. They didn't pop out of thin air. They have a long-standing history. It actually goes back to the first written report of bagels, which is in 1610 Poland. But I like to shorten it and focus on the Montreal history because we only have an hour. So Montreal style bagels were introduced by Jewish immigrants from Poland and the rest of Eastern Europe who came to Canada in the 1900s. Their baking style came from the specific regions of Europe where they had earned the tricks of the trade. So I know that, for example, one of the founders of the two most iconic places in Montreal got his skills from Kiev in Ukraine. So it's really where they were from influenced what they brought here.
It's very interesting.
It's really, really cool. So to this day, there are two big institutions that remain. There are more than that, but I think those are the two that people bring up when you think Montreal style bagels. So the first one is Saint Viateur Bagel, which was opened by, I want to say the pronunciation is Chaim, but it might be Chime. Hyman Seligman in 1957. So I prefer to go by the last name Seligman because I do want to be respectful and not butcher a beautiful name.
Of course.
And Seligman sold bagels way before he opened the shop. So he sold bagels at the beginning of the 1900s, but he established Saint Viateur Bagel in 1957. Then the second shop is Fairmount Bagel, which was established by Isidore Schlafman in 1919. So people often like to debate and say who brought it first, and they have opinions. It is likely that the first person who fired the first Montreal style bagel and sold it is actually Seligman. And there's two historians, so they're Maria Belinska and Joe King, who think the bagel came from Seligman.
Hmm.
I like to think that both were major contributors and therefore have the same, I want to say, historical weight and acknowledgement to be, given.
Hmm.
So, now, today you're in Quebec City. I'm in Toronto. We couldn't get our bagels straight from the source. So we went about it two ways. So Juan, you made your own, and I
Correct.
got mine this morning from Bagel Time in downtown Toronto, and immediately sliced and froze them. So Bagel Time, it's important to know, was founded by someone who used to work at Fairmount Bagels in Montreal. So it was founded by Imran Khan, and it follows the exact same techniques of a Fairmount bagel. So I think for me that was a fair equivalent. Now, Juan, you followed a very, very specific recipe of mine that I developed over a few months of research. How did that go for you?
It was very tedious. Oh my God. I actually don't think I've done a recipe before that requires overnight
Proofing?
fermentation,
Yeah.
yeah, whatever you want to call it, you know.
Hmm.
It takes a while. It's tedious, it's time consuming, and it's tiring. I mean, all that kneading. I'm pretty sure I got my good warm workout in for the day with that. Yeah, and I don't think I'm the best at shaping bagels. I think you sent me a video, and in
Yeah.
that video you did it so flawlessly, and I tried to recreate it, and I'm like, I don't know how she's doing this. I tried my best, but eventually, I think in one part where I kind of just messed up was maybe I flattened it a little bit too much, and it was like, you know how whenever you have like clay and you just roll it, and it gets to a point where
Yes.
it's so thin that it like breaks up, and I was like, you know what, let me just stick it in there, like let me just connect it like a plug. Um,
No, I
yeah, it was
understand
tiring.
exactly what you're talking about. So there are so I developed this recipe after myself failing, I want to say a minimum of 12 times.
Hmm.
And to this day, I've perfected it. I haven't mastered it.
Hmm.
So the roll that you see, I believe I got it from Claire Saffitz, and she explained it as she did it in the video I sent you that I'm hoping I'll be able to put on the website as well. I roll it in the center of my hand,
Hmm.
hovering above it, like as if your hand and your five fingers were making a little cage around the little round of dough. And then I was pressing with my palm to make sure that as I was pushing it around, I was shaping it into a perfect circle. And then to roll it takes the perfect amount of pressure and the perfect amount of humidity in the dough to make sure that when you finally put it together, it sticks. My personal issue that I encounter most is it never wants to stick to itself. I
Yes.
think I either need more water or more sugar in the dough
Hmm.
so that when it gets together, it actually sticks. There's been a couple that have been skewered before boiling. That is my great shame, but that is my truth.
Hmm. Yeah, I
So,
I don't think it was that easy to get it on like the first shot, the first try. I think mine were definitely a little bit on the stickier side, actually. I might have
okay.
messed up somewhere along the way, but eventually I somehow made it work. I honestly, at this point, I'm reliving everything, and I'm just thinking, how did this even happen? You know? And I think it's fair to say that this is the reason why I'm so exhausted today. Um, but hey, it worth
Yeah.
a shot. Worth a shot for sure.
Well, I did make sure that your efforts would be worth it and that you'd end up with bagels that represent the heart and soul of Montreal.
Hmm.
So they have been compared to the Fairmount and Seviatal bagels, and they're extremely close, if not nearly identical, to it. Now, there are three flavors that reign supreme, and the first one is poppy seed. So you've made that one, correct?
Yes, I'm
So
ready to
are
try
you
it.
ready to try it?
Yes, it's
Okay.
actually my first time trying it. Even though we'll get into it more, but first time trying it. Let's give it a shot.
Yeah, so I have mine here. I put a little bit of butter on it. You can put cream cheese if you want. If
Yes.
I do that, I will lose my voice.
I
So
literally.
that.
Okay. All right, let's
Are
get
you
into
ready
it.
to go?
Yes, I'm so
Okay,
ready. Okay,
salty.
cheers.
You look so shocked.
I am so shocked.
What's happening?
So much. I don't know how to explain that.
So if you want, I can break it down for you.
Please. That is
Essentially, it's a chewy crust, a
yes.
light, fluffy interior, and then you get this sweet, slightly salty, tangy dough. That's nothing like you've experienced before if you've bought bagels or
Hmm.
gotten a New York style bagel, because the Montreal style is noticeably sweeter.
See, I was so here's what I was gonna say actually. Besides that specific thing, that it tastes sweeter, I was also gonna say the tanginess. Um, it, I'm a little lost because I wasn't sure if maybe it could have been the cream cheese. And let me just try not to bake something.
So, yes, it is entirely possible that a cream cheese would increase the tang factor. Actually, the reason why, and we'll delve into it even deeper further along the way, the reason why it is so tangy is because of the second rise. What the second rise does from a chemical perspective is it slows down the fermentation and it'll increase the amount of lactic acid bacteria that is so often lacking in warm doughs.
Hmm.
That's one amongst several reasons why it's so important to do that long second rise, which is
Right.
at least 12 hours up to 36. Even though it drives you insane because it's incredibly
Hmm.
impractical, it
Right.
makes such a difference.
Overall, I mean, overall the bagel was really good. The poppy seeds have a very like nutty, earthy kind of a little actually kind of garlicky type of flavor. At least in my taste buds, they do. Um, but it's good. It's a good bagel, and I was gonna say it's very. If, I don't know if it might be a word, glutinous. It feels
Yes.
very fluffy. Like it's when you bite into it, you could just feel. I don't know how to explain that. That's such a weird
No,
texture. The
you're
texture.
absolutely right. It's super fluffy. So bagels are a really really high gluten product,
Hmm.
and that's the reason why it takes so much time to knead. Is because you really want that gluten to develop so you can form a really strong yet
Hmm.
fluffy product. So for me, I don't have some beef against poppy seed bagels. I know they're very popular. I don't understand them. So, Montreal style, oftentimes where you go to one of these shops, they'll actually just roll a single side, so like half of the bagel in poppy seeds, and
Hmm.
it won't cover the whole thing. It'll just be sort of an accent that is accentuated against the goldenness of the bagel itself. I understand that
Hmm.
theoretically, poppy seeds are fruity and nutty. I am not getting that, and they're too small to add the texture that you seek out when you add seeds or grains on top of a baked good.
Hmm.
So I understand they're very common in that type of cuisine and in, Jewish baking.
Hmm.
I do not connect to it, and this is not the bagel I would move towards. I would be, if I had to pick between the top two, which are sesame and poppy, I would lean more towards sesame.
Honestly, let me go. Let me get into the sesame once we do, and then I can maybe compare and
You
let you
can
know, like,
assess,
okay,
yeah.
here that because again the poppy was not bad. I enjoyed it. I really liked it. For some reason, I don't mind the flavor of poppy seeds. Um, but
I
overall,
don't
it's
mind
just
it. I just don't
mhm.
understand it. What is it?
Sure,
Where is it? Show me.
right, exactly, and I agree on that part as well. It's just it's hard for me to wrap my head around it because there's a sweetness to it. There's a sweet factor to these bagels, and it's I can't put it into words, honestly. Let's
So
keep going.
there
I would
is,
like to eventually get
there's
into the sesame, honestly, because I
absolutely.
can't
Now you're
process.
fascinated. You're mesmerized.
Yes.
So now I've had the OGs of these in Montreal, and I once took a trip to Montreal with my friends. I think it was this past October, and we took a trip with bridesmaids to plan stuff for my wedding and picked a dress.
Hmm.
And on purpose, without really saying it to anybody, I stayed behind for an extra day just to compare between Fairmount and Savietta.
Was it worth it?
Like, there was no other purpose to my trip. After that, I went to a train station and I watched Occupation Double for 6 hours. Like, this was my only goal that day, and I had fulfilled it.
Yeah.
And at the time, I thought my favorite was Vermont. But there might not ever be a way to determine that for sure.
Hmm.
And let me tell you why we'll never know if I'm right. It's because of the Bagel principle. So I've given you a little bit of an excerpt as to what it is, if you would like to break it down for the people.
For sure. Well, the Heisenbagel uncertainty principle, first reported in New York by J. Kenji Lopez Alt for Serious Eats, is alive and well throughout North America. Time drastically transforms the texture of a bagel within as little as 30 minutes.
And that phenomenon is really alive and well. And it's something you can tell if you've ever walked out of a bagel shop with a bagel fresh out of the oven. The difference can be seen. So this is based off the Heisenberg uncertainty principle. So the Heisenberg uncertainty principle is a fundamental theory in quantum mechanics that defines why a scientist cannot measure multiple quantum variables at the same time. When applied to bagels, it's the idea that you will never be able to compare two bagels from two different shops to an accurate degree, because the simple act of bringing them together and, the time passing as you bring them to one another will completely degrade them. So for Montreal-style bagel specifically, fresh batches can really quickly go from a crispy, lightly bouncy exterior and a soft, fluffy interior to a tough and chewy teething ring. Personally, and this is my own, theories and what I'm positing and putting forward, but I hope the critics don't take it too seriously, although to me it's too serious. I think this has to do with the high gluten structure of a bagel and how in the first few minutes out of the oven, the initial heat and moisture are gathered up in the middle to soften the inside while leaving the outside really fresh and crisp. And now, as I said before, while this is mere conjecture, I posit a reverse sexual effect will occur as the bagel cools down, because it's going to release heat and humidity throughout the crust if it's not cut fast enough. So this is kind of a huge problem, and it was a problem in the history of the development of bagels in America because, for example, one of the most influential bagel companies was family-owned and it was Lender. And one of the pivotal points for them in expediting production was being able to freeze bagels, because ultimately bagels are a baked good that can go stale in as little as 5 hours. So if you're thinking of producing bagels in, offshore New York like they did, and all of a sudden you want to take over Minnesota, how do you get it to Minnesota in time? And how do you get a high quality product rather than a cement brick? So for them, the game changer was to actually take the bagel and just freeze it. And they would actually sell it to people by saying, hey, look at this beautiful product that does not have any preservatives. Then they actually fine-tuned it. So what do you think might the problem be if you freeze a whole bagel and then try to consume it later?
That's a really good question. I don't know. Maybe it would taste like ice. It would get freezer burn. I'm not sure.
So it could absolutely get freezer burns. I pack mine in the paper bag it comes from, and then I wrap it in plastic, and I'm very careful about this. However, the problem is you're putting an entire puck in the freezer, and when you're going to reheat it later, most likely you'll want to slice it first. So a lot of people who bought the Lender's bagels at the very beginning of them being frozen got huge cuts. I got really hurt because the knife would slide off the bagel right into their hand. That's a little bit gnarly. So what they did is, at a time when the toaster was rising in popularity because it was a very convenient product, the Lenders just went ahead, and the second it was out of the oven, they would slice it and then freeze it. So now this is one of the solutions if you want to have a good fresh bagel. Another one, if you really want to enjoy the product at its prime, is to have it right out of the oven. So this does mean, if you're looking to compare the quality of both bagels, that the only way to do it correctly is to sit down at the entrance of the bagel shop, the second you have it, and then immediately devour the entire bagel straight from the bag.
Right.
That's the only way to do it. And on my end, that's how I tested it. And with that method of testing, I determined that my favorite bagel is the one from Vermont. But that doesn't mean that it's the best one. I actually have no idea if it's the best one because I can't compare both experiences equally because they were at different times when I was experiencing a different level of hunger. And it was in the same spot that I ate the bagel in one, location and then the other. So really the Heisenberg uncertainty principle is mainly applied to the dough itself. I think from a psychological perspective, it applies to the entire experience. So ultimately, I recommend for each person to try both. Just go out with your friends, go to the Mile Inn in Montreal, and see which one you prefer. And let me know what you think. But just know that your answer might not be the best one because there might not be a best one. And
Correct.
that's quantum bagel physics for you. Now, when I visited both shops, one of them told me that their highest selling bagel was poppy seed. Then the other one told me that it was sesame. So here we have sesame. Do you think there's going to be a difference between those two flavors?
Yes. I don't eat that many poppy seeds, but which is weird to say because Lisa's allergic. I like sesame. I like the taste of sesame. I enjoy sesame
Yeah.
seeds. It's a very distinct flavor, so I'm looking forward to this one.
Yeah, I'm excited about it as well. I think we're both going to have a lot of opinions and
Hmm.
they are most likely going to be positive. So, are you ready for this?
Yes, yes.
Okay,
Let's do this.
salty. See, this flavor I understand.
Yes.
This flavor I am attracted to.
I think I chewed more with the poppy seed bagel than I did with the sesame one because this one was really good.
Oh no, this one is absolutely delightful. What I like is by putting the sesame seeds in the oven for not that long. It's about 20 to 25 minutes. And then
Hmm.
if you're using a wood-fired oven, I would assume it's a little bit less because it would get hotter. What you're getting is the same way that sesame oil and toasted sesame oil are marginally different because
Hmm.
sesame oil can be used for like neutral cooking methods, whereas toasted sesame oil is used for dressing. Well,
Right.
by putting the sesame seeds in the oven, you're toasting them and you're really bringing out that strong, nutty, rich flavor. It makes a world of difference.
It has a nuttier flavor, in my opinion, than the poppy seed one, which now brings me back to I don't understand why poppy seed even exists at this point, except for like maybe allergy reasons. Um, but that toasty, nutty flavor from the sesame seed is actually this makes this bagel way better in my opinion than the poppy seed one. The poppy seed one had a distinct flavor. I don't know how to explain it that well in comparison to this. Like this one's more centered around just one type of flavor for some reason. I don't know if
Hmm.
maybe it was just in the process making something. I don't know. Maybe this bagel happened to have a little bit more sugar in it, or the other one happened to have a little bit more sugar content. But this one's good. This one's really good.
I think what may be happening is, first of all, you've been exposed and welcome into the ring of people who have had Montreal style bagels, which
Hmm.
is always really fun because it's more than what you think it is. But what happened is you tried something that had a lot of tang, a lot of
Hmm.
sweetness, a lot of flavor, and a high chew, and it was presented with a topping that doesn't lend that much flavor. I mean, arguably it does. I'm just personally not getting it. Maybe I'm a little bit dumb. I can live with that very well. But then when you turn to sesame seed, the flavor of the topping is put forward that much more.
Hmm.
And so once you're accustomed to the flavor of a standard Montreal style bagel, you can sort of put it back in context. Now, I think this is my favorite one. But I would say in comparison to poppy seed, because all dress will always have a special place in my heart that it cannot be moved. It will
Hmm.
stay put. But here, I think what I like as well is the texture. So oftentimes in a lot of recipes you put sesame seeds on top and people say it adds a nice crunch.
Hmm.
If you put it on top of like a soup or a stew, I personally don't get it that much. It's really jam packed on this type of bagel. So you're really getting that extra layer of texture. And it makes me very happy. Now, I
Yes,
have a
yes.
very important question for you.
Mhm.
If you were to mess around with this and you could go savory or sweet, what would you put on this sesame bagel for a brunch menu?
I know the perfect thing. It has to be. Oh my god. Okay, this has to be a. This is going to be a bagel sandwich.
Hmm.
But I'm not too sure yet on the other stuff from the sandwich. I just know one component has to be. Have you ever had Korean style fried chicken? Like Korean fried chicken?
I have not had it, but I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
So just imagine just fried chicken in general, but it has to be really,
Yeah.
really crispy fried chicken, really
Yeah, with
light,
rice
thin,
flour.
crispy. Yes, fried chicken. Yes, yes, but it has to have. It's fried chicken dipped in like a. Oh, let's go with
Gochugaru
honey garlic
gochujang
maybe.
sauce.
I was just
Hmm.
gonna say something sweet, salty sweet. Go with honey garlic for example. It has to be something a little. I want a little bit of spice in that chicken, but I also want a little bit of sweet in that chicken.
Hmm.
Mix it with the bagel's sweetness already, plus the sesame seeds on top. I think that would be the perfect thing, in my opinion.
Yeah. So in there, I would say you should and could put gochujang in there. So have you had that?
I want to say yes because I have had Korean barbecue before. Um, Again, I want to say
So
yes, but this was also in Florida, so I'm not sure how authentic the flavor might have been. You know.
so I mean, Korean barbecue, essentially, if you've had kimchi,
Mm-hmm.
you've had gochujang.
Mm-hmm.
So in Korean cooking, there's two staple seasonings. I mean, there's more than that. Those are the ones that people tend to cling to when they introduce people to Korean cooking.
Mm-hmm.
So gochugaru is essentially a special type of chili flake,
Right.
and you can put that all over the place. I personally put it in a cucumber salad. I really love this. The other flavor, the other component, if I may say, is gochujang. So it's a fermented red pepper paste, and it's tangy, sweet, fermented, a little bit spicy, and then you can choose a spice level. So when I was first introduced to Korean cooking, I didn't read the label, and I got the hottest one, and I think I saw God. But now I have like the medium hot and it's much more reasonable. I
Mm-hmm.
think you should put that in it. And then what I would finish this with would most likely be QP mayo.
Yes. Yes. Actually. So I think so. Let's assume. So okay, I'm trying to think, and it's all going at like 800 miles per hour in my head.
Uh huh.
Would I dip the chicken into the gochujang, or would I actually just spread this on the bottom side of the bagel, uh, put the cube pie mayo like on top of the chicken, squish it all together, cut it, and then it would just be a really nice cross section that just happens to taste really, really good.
What I'm thinking is if you want people to have the best experience, I would do essentially gochujang is used to build sauces more in stews and soups. Oh my god, I love
Hmm.
that ingredient. I'll send you some. It's really great. But what I would do is I would whisk it with a little bit of liquid because it's really, really thick.
Right.
It's kind of
Yes.
like miso but sticky.
It's paste.
And
Yeah.
so yeah, I would break it down and then I would mix it with the honey and the garlic. And I
Hmm.
would marinate your chicken in that
Okay.
before I put in the batter.
Yes, that's exactly. Okay, see, that's actually that's a smarter idea than what I was thinking about. That was a better idea than what I was thinking about because I was actually thinking about just mixing it, making it into a sauce, dipping the chicken after it's done. But I like the marinating process better.
Yeah, it's a complete thing. And then you can go a little bit wild and you can put the gochugaru in the rice flour mix.
Hmm.
And then you get those little red little tidbits. I think that would be really bomb. I think that would be really good.
I think we should start a restaurant, a bagel shop that
I
sells
I
specifically
think
just this, just that. That's it. Nothing. You can't have. You can maybe have the bagel plain or like just the bagel. We'll make all three types of bagels, but the only variety or difference is that you can have the chicken with it. That's it. That's it. We just focus on chicken and three bagels. And
I
that's it.
think
That's the whole that's the whole thing of the restaurant.
I think what we should do, and it would be very funny, and it would bring a lot of hype, and it would be closed within 3 months. It would be called The Right Way. So it's something I've seen a couple times with really preposterous chefs.
Hmm.
Although I kind of respect it because they're at the top of their game, but at the same time, it's a little bit dismissive. They will sell a product like this amazing burger, and they will say, you are not allowed to customize it. So what we would do a restaurant where everything is way too expensive. So I'm thinking that one should start at $19 and doesn't come with fries. The fries are $5. Like wild prices. And then you're not allowed to adjust anything. And the spice level is what you get. And we can do all the items we've ever talked about on the podcast.
Yes, I want to justify why it's $19. It's because of all the labor that has to go into making these
The
damn
bagels.
bagels. Yes,
Okay.
but we're
Hold.
also going to make the. I mean, I'm not going to say we're making the chicken by. Yes, we are. Like, we'll buy the chicken. We're not going to have live chickens in the back, but like, we'll buy the chicken. But all of the process of like everything is just time consuming, and that's why it's
Yeah.
$19.
Well, hold on. I do want to ask a fun question now. How much do you think a Montreal style bagel is?
Shit. Let's go $8, $9, 9.50,
For the bagel with no
$12,
topping.
$12. It's $12 for the bagel with a little bit of cream cheese, if you ask nicely.
So, in Montreal, and they usually will sell the. Okay, I'll give you the number. So, I went to both shops. You
Yeah.
have to pay cash.
Hmm.
There's an Italian coffee shop in the corner who does
Oh,
have a machine, and
cash.
Sevieta also has a machine to withdraw money. It's
Fi-
$1.10.
What? Shit, are you
A single,
serious?
yeah. And then a dozen is probably like it's really cheap. It's I don't think it's more than $10. That would shock me actually.
Man, I guess they
They're
just don't care. They don't care. Well, okay,
it's
but the
well
$19 one is because we're also adding chicken and it makes sense. It makes sense. Okay, and these are going to be like the best bagels in. Well, let's
well
pretend
okay.
we're in Montreal. These will be the best bagels in Montreal, so it's a fair reason to have $19 bagel sandwich.
What I like about you right now is that you're thinking that a restaurant called The Right Way, that doesn't let people customize anything, would have to justify their prices. It's the right way. What we can do is to
Mm-hmm.
get some hype even more before we close after 3 months, is we can pay our employees a living wage and
Yeah.
heavily advertising to the point where the wage doesn't even make sense. You know? Like we could actually have the employees conduct all the interviews, promoting the fact that we're paying a decent, you
Right.
know, amount for our employees.
But now that I think about it, we also need to have a drink. I mean,
Oh, it's a
it's going to
matcha.
be a big.
It's always a matcha.
Yes, you're right. It is always a matcha. Oh my god, what am I thinking?
That's our signature drink. So I think it would be an so it doesn't go with the chicken at all. It
No,
would
not at all.
be a honey almond milk
Why was
matcha
I
with
thinking
lavender
the
buds
same
on
thing?
top.
We're literally thinking the same thing. In my head, I'm like, it has to be like a honey matcha type of drink. Oh my god, dude. We
Always.
should make this
Yeah.
restaurant. We should actually go through with this business and open up a restaurant in Montreal and just sell bagel chicken sandwiches that are
Yeah.
slightly spicy. And maybe once in a blue moon, we'll add a slice of cheese because maybe one day we were really drunk and we tried it out in the kitchen when we were just fucking,
Actually,
we were
you're
just
gonna
messing
like
around with the
this.
sandwich.
You're gonna like this. In a Korean cooking, it's common to like in restaurants you can pay like $1 or $2 more
Hmm.
for a melted
American
mozzarella.
cheese. Oh, I thought it was gonna be American.
It's ooh no, it's a melted mozzarella and then it has this really nice pull and it helps get through with the fat. It helps get through the spiciness.
Hmm.
So oftentimes I don't adjust the spice level at Korean restaurants. I actually suspect the chefs look at me and adjust it for me, but I'm not gonna ask. I'll let them
Right.
be. And then I always add cheese on top to make sure I'll get through it. So a couple of times I've ordered through delivery apps,
Hmm.
and they definitely didn't adjust it. It was definitely as spicy as it could be, and the cheese got me through. So yeah, I think you could charge an extra $9 for the mozzarella.
I agree. Low moisture mozzarella on top of the chicken, so that it doesn't get too soggy and that the bagel itself doesn't actually get soggy either, and it maintains its like what do you want to say, the
Integrity.
consistency, integrity of the bagel.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think we have a
Oh,
solid plan here.
gorgeous.
We have a
Yeah.
really solid plan here.
I like yours. Mine would be, I mean, those items are just so expensive to produce. Like, I think we're going to have to go for $21. But it would be a
21.50.
Montreal style bagel. That would be the name. It would be dumb as hell, but it would just be the sesame bagel with smoked meat from Montreal in it, with all the little peppercorn, the
Yes.
fattiness from the meat, and then you would cut it through with the classic, which is Dijon mustard. But now I've had a variation at Bagel Source in Boston because I've had bagels from all over, son, and they did a honey mustard butter that they put on their breakfast bagel sandwich. So I
Hmm.
think if you're thinking sesame bagel, honey mustard butter, and then Montreal smoked meat with all that peppercorn, it's over. And then you can add a couple pickles.
I like how you say you can when in reality you should. You should add
And
a couple of
we
extra
will
pickles.
make you do it.
Yes, yes. This
Like I don't think people understand that once we've made a decision, it's final.
it's
And
final.
yes,
You
all
have
our
to have it this way. I don't care if you're allergic to pickles, sir. Okay, that is
or
the
sesame
sandwich.
seeds.
Or
This is the
sesame
right
seeds.
way.
This is the way.
Yeah,
This is the way. Please
this
just
is the way.
oh my God, this is actually a great idea. I really so real quick. I never really had smoked meat prior to coming to
Mhm.
Canada because it's just not part of the Latino cuisine, to be quite
Yeah,
honest. And when I first tried it here, I was blown away because I thought it was delicious. And which is
yeah,
weird, Lisa got this one like prepackaged smoked meat thing from like Walmart or something from somewhere. And all you do is it comes in a plastic bag. All you do is just put
yeah,
it in the microwave, you take it out, and then you put it in a sandwich or whatever. And my God, it's one of the best, quickest meals I've ever had in my life. It's good. It's really good. So I can only
yeah.
imagine it on a really nice sesame seed bagel. Oh my God.
It's insane.
My
So my
mouth is watering
parents,
and I have food right here, and this is insane.
they worked in the restaurant industry and they have a lot of roots to like Quebecois restaurant quality cooking made at home where you don't
Hmm.
have to worry about margins. So the quantities were insane. So my dad would go to Costco and there's this Montreal smoked meat there that you would buy in pouches. I think it was frozen. I'm assuming so. That's what would make the most sense. Then he would boil it in the little package and we
Hmm.
get really juicy, really tender, really flavorful with all that peppercorn. And he would serve that on a queso roll with mustard and pickles. And it was mind blowing. And I'm pretty sure it was one of those packages where one pouch serves like three, and he would make it one. And it would be a special occasion where he had gone to Costco without a list. And it was phenomenal. So
It
to
sounds like
me,
heaven.
it hits deep. Yeah, so I'm gonna try to see if I can get you Costco meat. I know it doesn't sound appealing, but it is. So now, as we alluded to earlier, it's
Yeah.
easy to get a good bagel, but it's really hard to get a great one. So one solution that you've gone through is to make them yourself because Costco to this day doesn't sell Montreal style bagels right out of the oven. They're unfortunately
Sadly.
packaged, which is not the same thing. So your listeners at home might be tempted to make your own bagels. And I understand why you might want to do that because I've defended that argument and that solution to your problems so well.
Hmm.
But let me tell you why this is one of the hardest baked goods to make.